The Gilded Age was known for its over-the-top, ornate mansions. But to whom can we attribute these magnificent structures? Hi everyone, Ken here. Welcome to This House. Today we are exploring the impact of architect Richard Morris Hunt in our series, Designing the USA. As we go through his story, we will look at pictures of many of the buildings he designed. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House. Richard Morris Hunt was born on October 31st, 1827, in Brattleboro, Vermont, to the influential Hunt family. His grandfather was the lieutenant governor of Vermont and his father was a U.S. congressman. His family was considered old money, as he had ancestral ties to Gouverneur Morris, one of the founding fathers who had written much of the U.S. Constitution. While Richard was still a young child, his father passed away in 1832. His mother, Jane, tried to find a fresh start by moving the family around to several cities on the East Coast before deciding to settle down in Boston in 1838. There, Richard attended the Boston Latin School for a short time before his mother sent him off to school in Sandwich, Massachusetts. By 1843, Richard's brother William had fallen into poor health, so Jane sought out the best physicians in the world to help her son. She uprooted the family again and moved to Rome, Italy, where the young mind of Richard Morris Hunt would be shaped into the masterful architect we know him as today. Richard was immediately enamored by the statues, fountains, mosaics, and all other forms of art in the Old World. He declared that he would become an artist and began studying the masters. His family and instructors noticed his keen attention to geometry and influenced him to pursue architecture instead of art. Hunt did just that. He moved to Geneva, Switzerland, to study under the architect Samuel Derrier. And just 2 years later, in 1846, he moved to Paris, France, to study under the architect Hector Lefeuille, who coached Richard through his entrance exams while he applied to l'École des Beaux-Arts in Paris. One historian is quoted as saying, "Hunt was the first American to be admitted to the School of Architecture at l'École des Beaux-Arts, finest school of architecture in the world, and the subsequent importance of his influence on the architecture of his own country can hardly be overstated." In 1853, the Louvre project architect died unexpectedly, and Hector Lefeuille was tasked with completing its design. This event would become Richard's breakout moment. Hector began assembling a team of people to help him with the massive undertaking. He viewed Richard as a protege and brought him on board for inspiration, giving him the task of site supervisor. Richard continued to impress Hector with every step of the project, so Hector allowed Richard the honor of aiding in the design of the Pavillon de la Bibliothèque atop the Palais Royal. The newly completed buildings were beautiful, timeless pieces of architecture that Richard could now proudly boast on his resume. In 1856, back in the United States, architect Thomas Walter was tasked with expanding the United States Capitol. He had greatly admired the work being done in Paris and sought out a member of Hector Lefeuille's design team to aid in the Capitol's expansion. Richard Morris Hunt was highly recommended by Lefeuille, so Walter hired him to return stateside to Washington, D.C. Richard completed his portion of the project in just 1 year, and reflected on his young career, having aided in the design of the two most monumental buildings of his time. He visited New York City, and found the city to be rapidly changing. He began dreaming of leaving his mark on the city, shaping it to rival the magnificence of Rome. Full of new ideas, he took his life savings and established his own practice in New York City. His first commission was to design a space for artists, the 10th Street Studio Building. When completed, he rented a space in this building where, in 1858, he founded the first architectural school in America. Among his first students was William Robert Ware, who would later go on to found the first two American university-level architecture programs at both MIT and Columbia. Richard pioneered the architecture industry in the United States, setting precedents for education and practice. Richard was commissioned by Thomas P. Rossiter to design a pair of houses, but Thomas refused to pay Richard after its construction was finished. Richard sued for payment, and the court awarded him 2.5% commission from the project as payment. The Engineering magazine reported that this event helped to establish a uniform system of charges by percentage. Around this time, the name Richard Morris Hunt was becoming synonymous with great architecture. The Vanderbilt family began hiring him to design their houses, one by one, each one more extravagant than the last. Palaces began popping up around Central Park, giving Manhattan a reputation for exquisite beauty, rivaling the likeness of Paris. Richard's brother William bought a house in Newport, Rhode Island, where he would meet the love of his life, Catherine Clinton Halland, the daughter of shipping baron Samuel S. Halland. In 1861, the couple married and the Hallands gifted the marriage a dowry of $400,000, or the modern-day equivalent of about $13 million. With this new influx in cash, Richard was able to expand his practices, hire more architects, and build larger mansions outside of Manhattan. He began designing homes in Newport, including the Vanderbilt's vacation house, the Breakers. By 1870, he had designed homes for some of the wealthiest Americans, along with commercial buildings, including the New York Tribune building. In 1881, he was given the honor of designing the pedestal upon which the Statue of Liberty stands. Other works from this time period included the Fogg Museum of Art at Harvard, the Theological Library in Marcon Chapel at Princeton, and the Scroll and Key Clubhouse at Yale. Now in the later part of his life, he began to experiment with new design ideas, bringing the Beaux-Arts style to the forefront of the American design world. In 1877, he premiered his take on the style by introducing the design of the Lenox Library on Fifth Avenue. It was at this time that overwhelming demand for the style came from the upper class. He began designing mansions in the Beaux-Arts style, both in Manhattan and in Newport, even being commissioned to design the Biltmore. Later on, he was commissioned to plan the site of the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, which went on to win a gold medal from the Royal Institute of British Architects. This was a great end to his career, as he passed away just a couple years later in 1895, having achieved the highest honors for architecture in his late life and leaving what he thought would be a lasting impression on the United States. Only one of his buildings currently survives in Manhattan, the Charity Hospital, which today serves as a youth hostel. His influence would carry on for many more years beyond his death, as his son Richard Halland Hunt would continue his father's practice in designing Beaux-Arts style buildings for both residential and commercial use. One of his employees, who had also attended l'École des Beaux-Arts, architect Emmanuel Louis Masqueret, went on to become the chief designer of the 1904 World's Fair, also known as the Louisiana Purchase Exposition in St. Louis, Missouri. You can view the entire repaired film clip of this exposition on our new channel, That Happened, linked in the video description below and pinned as the top comment in this comment section. That Happened is our brand new channel devoted to repairing vintage film, commercials, cartoons, and public domain movies. Go check it out and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy everything vintage. Thank you all for watching. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode of This House. I'd also like to say a special thank you to our This House supporters whose names you can see on screen right now. If you would like to see your name on the screen, please consider joining our membership program today. I'll see you next time on This House.